Hi Stampers, this is Kim with Great Inspirations. Thank you for joining me today. I have 3 fun fold cards to share today, and these cards were all made using a mechanism I call a box sleeve. Now, what is a box sleeve? Well, the most maybe familiar example of a box sleeve is this. The matches. It's the match box cover, and it slides right on there just like that. It's a sleeve in which a box goes into. So that is what the exact same principle for each one of these cards. And this is the mechanism. It's a little smaller than the box sleeve on the box of matches, but it's the same idea. It's just a rectangular hollow box. It would be a cylinder if it were round, but of course it's rectangular. So these are the mechanisms used to make each one of these cards. And this card uses it for a pop-up mechanism inside the card. See, it's right there. And this card can stand up on its own. I know that's very hard to see on the camera, but it stands up on its own. And it also has the same mechanism. It's just a little different than having one that you make separately. This one is incorporated in the card base. And then this one also stands up. I call it a stand out card because the little box sleeve allows the focal panel to stand out. And there are several ways you can change up each of these designs, these fun folds, to allow it to fit your needs. For example, you can change the size of the box sleeve. Instead of having it a portrait orientation, you can have it a landscape. Like I said, you can always use, instead of cardstock, you can use designer series paper to make the box sleeve mechanism. Well, what I thought I would do, I thought I would go through each one of these different cards with you and show you how, just the basics of putting the card base together, and then you can of course decorate it however you like. Now, in the description of this video there will be a link to my blog, and on my blog you will find the coordinating blog post for these cards, and that is where I will list the measurements and all the supplies needed to make these versions of this fun fold. This pop-up card, I used the new Seize the Day bundle, stamp set and dies, and that is in the Stampin' Up! January through June 2022 mini catalog. This bundle, the stamp set and dies, is called Home and Garden. It is also in that same mini catalog. In this I used Greeting, that's from Sunshine Sentiments, which is in the annual catalog, but the designer series paper I used is in the Celebration brochure, and you could get this designer series paper for free with the $50 Stampin' Up! Product purchase, but this will only be available through February 28th, so Celebration is beginning to wind down a little bit. But like I say, you don't have to worry about the measurements or anything. There will be that link that you can follow to my blog where you will get the measurements and all the supplies. First of all, let's start off with the pop-up card. Now, way back, might have been November, we made this card, and it was called a Pinwheel tower card because down inside it had the little tower. Well, that's exactly what this is. That's what this is. And that is what we're going to use for the pop-up mechanism. You can use cardstock. You can use a designer series paper. I chose to use the designer series paper because the cardstock, here's another one I made right here. And it sees the day as well. It's a little more busy. But I used, for the inside of it, I used cardstock, but then I covered it with designer series paper. And it's not really bulky because there's just not enough of it, but it does make a bit of a difference in how the card closes and how the card fits in an envelope. And by the way, another thing about all the cards I'm going to show you today, they all do fit in an A2 size envelope. And that would be the Stampin' Up! Medium envelopes. They all just fold real nicely up and they fit right in there. Okay, so let me find, here's my little cheat sheet. Okay, tells me all the measurements, but we're going to start with a card base that is just, you know, regular A2 size card. This one happens to be a portrait orientation, so it's 4 1/4 by 11 scored at 5 1/2. And as you can see, I have put a piece of basic white cardstock inside, and this is what we're going to use to know where to line up our box sleeve. But I believe we'll go ahead and we'll use the designer series paper. And this paper is 3 1/2 by 4. It's the width that you wanted inside in 3 1/2 inches. And then along that 3 1/2 inch side, you're going to score at 1 1/2. No, I'm sorry, you will not. 3 quarters, 1 1/2, 2 1/4, and 3. And then when we fold it, it's going to give us that nice little box sleeve. And we'll just get and along the most narrow piece here, the little 3/4 of an inch, we're going to put some adhesive. We're just going to fold this right down on it. And there we go. Now we'll bring our card over, and we want this to fit just like that. So we'll just smush it down, and we're going to put adhesive right here, right along where it will line up against the front of the card base, and then we're just going to close it. And there's that one. Now we're going to turn it over and do the exact same thing. Close it. And there's your pop-up mechanism right there. As you can see inside here, I just put a greeting that's matted on some designer series paper. So that's how you do the pop-up one. Now let's say you want to do it in landscape orientation. It's the exact same thing, only you cut your cardstock at 8 1/2 by 5 1/2 and score it 4 1/4. You put your piece of 5 1/4 by 4 designer series or basic white cardstock, and then you could take your mechanism that you've made, and the only thing that changed was the length. Change the length to 5 1/4 as opposed to 4. the other dimensions are all the same. And again, we just get it right where we want it. Except I think I want this side. That's where the seam is. Put on the adhesive, close it up, turn it over, and we'll do the exact same thing. And there's the pop-up mechanism for this card that is in the landscape orientation. Okay, now we'll move along to, let's do this one, this standout. Makes the card stand out. Because all this is a regular card base that is, again, 11 by 4 1/4 and scored at 5 1/2. And then we just make the box to put on it. So let's get those pieces out. Like I said, I'll get my cheat sheet. Okay, so here's our card base. And here is the box sleeve mechanism. And it is 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. And we scored it 3/4, 1 3/4, 3 1/4, and 4 1/4. Only I think this is the 4 1/4. I had it backwards there. But anyway, we're going to put it together just like this. Just like we did the other one. So we'll put the adhesive on here. Just lay it down flat. And there you go. And now we're going to put it on here. Just folded it down. And this is on one of the wider sides. And we just take it and butt it up against the end, the bottom of the card. And there we go. That's all there is to it. And then you can put on here whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a greeting. You could put, say you want this to be a birthday card. You could have a big birthday cake on there. You can just do whatever you want. It's all up to you. This is just the basic card base. Now, for this, if you want to do it in the landscape orientation, it's exactly like what we did for the pop-up. You just make the sleeve longer. Just longer. Everything else is the same. The width is the same. You just make it longer. And you score the exact same way you did for this one. So this one you would have, because your card is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4, this will be 5 1/2. And this is another thing you can do. If you don't want to use a card base and then put the box sleeve on it, you can just use a 1/4 sheet of cardstock and put the sleeve on it, and it will stand up. And it will still fold up just like that and still fit inside the envelope. Just like this one. You just push it up and it fits inside the envelope. Now, one thing I do need to say about whatever you put here, you have to make sure it doesn't exceed the height of your card, because if it does, it won't fit in the envelope. So anyway, there is the standout card. We have one more to go, and that is the stand alone, or stand up on its own card. And this one, instead of making the box, although I'm going to show you how you can make the box, but instead of making the box, you just cut your cardstock longer and have a little piece that forms its own box. I know that didn't make much sense, but so anyway, for this, your card base is going to be the 4 1/4, like always, but it's going to be 10 1/2. And then we're going to put it in the paper trimmer or the on your score tool, and you're going to score it at 1/2, 1 3/4, 3 3/4, and 5. And what that does, and that leaves you your 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 card. So then you just will put it just like this. So let's get some adhesive on this little flap down here, and we'll form our box sleeve. I think if I do this wrong, you all can laugh at me, but I think you just fold it here, not along where you put the adhesive, but the next fold line. And there you go. Now, as you can see, the focal image is on another piece of cardstock, and that piece of cardstock for the focal image is 3 by 5 3/4, and then you score it at 1/2 and 1 3/4. And we're going to put the adhesive right here on the little flap. And this is on this one, you do need to pay attention because you need to make sure this isn't going to go above your card. So all you need to do is just fold this down. I just push this back to get it out of the way for a minute. And then center this as best you can. Push harder. And then there it is. And then all you need to do, put some adhesive down here along the bottom. Get it where you like it on this card. Give it a little push. And there you go. That's all there is to that. Now, if you want to make, well, I have these in separate colors, so I can show you. This one, as you can see, there's just the one little lip, that one little tab that we put the adhesive on. But for this one, I just made this piece separate. So you put adhesive here and here, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the dimensions I used. So I will have those on my blog. I will put the dimensions that I used to do it this way on the blog. But honestly, I think this is the easiest way. It just works. It's fewer pieces, less adhesive. I think this way is the best. But I will put the dimensions on here. And then all you would do is just put your adhesive along this little tab and glue it, and then put your adhesive along this little tab and glue it on there. So those are the cards I have for today. Like I said, the birthday wishes, it's a stands all on its own. And then we have the standout card. And of course, the pop-up card. And as I said, I call these box sleeve cards. Thank you for joining me. And remember to go over to my blog for all the instructions and the supply list. Until next time, stamp happy.